approve. You probably realize we haven't done much of that yet, but we're getting that in order. And so just be prepared. Next week, you will be getting some minutes in your email, and you will be at some point asking to approve them after you've had a chance to take a look at them. So that will be coming next week. Okay, today we're going to have a hearing on Senate Bill 394. And I will have Natalie give us a preview, but I want to let everybody know that it's the same language as the requiring the use of age verification technology for pornography websites. It's the exact same language that we had before when we had it in a House bill. But to facilitate getting it actually over the process, we need to hear the Senate bill also, and then either the House or the Senate bill, one of those, after they have passed both houses, will go to the governor. So that's kind of the reason why we need to do it this way. And this seems like the most expedient way to do it. And this will give you a refresh. So Natalie, if you would go ahead and give us an overview of Senate Bill 394.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 394 requires the use of age verification technology to permit access to internet websites containing material that's harmful to minors. The bill creates a new section. Subsection A provides that any commercial entity that knowingly shares or distributes material that is harmful to minors on a website, and that material appears on 25% or more of the web pages viewed on that website in any calendar month, or knowingly host such website, would be required to verify that any person attempting to access the website who is a resident of Kansas or who is located in Kansas at the time of the attempted access is 18 years of age or older. It would be a violation of this section to allow a person to access that website without verifying that person is 18 years of age or older. The required age verification shall be conducted either using a commercially available database that is regularly used by businesses or governmental entities for the purpose of age and identity verification, or any other commercially reasonable method of age and identity verification. Subsection B provides that a person who is able to access a website without verifying their age in violation of this section would be able to report that violation to the Attorney General. The Attorney General would be required to investigate that and can bring an action for injunctive relief to enjoin any continuing violation. In addition to injunctive relief, an action may also seek to impose a civil penalty against the entity of not less than $500 and not more than $10,000. In each instance in which the website is accessed in violation of that section would be a separate violation. Subsections C and D provide that a violation would be considered an unconscionable act and practice under the Kansas Consumer Protection Act. And for the purposes of remedies and penalties, the act, a person alleging a violation would be deemed a consumer, and a commercial entity that violates the act would be deemed a supplier. And then finally, proof of a consumer transaction would not be required. Subsection E provides that a parent or legal guardian of a minor who is able to access a website without verifying that minor's age can bring a private cause of action against a commercial entity for violation of this section. Any action can seek actual damages resulting from the minor's access to that material, statutory damages in an amount not less than $50,000, and reasonable attorney fees and costs. Subsection F provides that a commercial entity or third party that performs the required age verification shall not retain any identifying information of the individual after access has been granted. If that information is retained, then that entity or third party can be liable to such individual for damages resulting from that retention. Subsection G provides that nothing shall be construed to impose an obligation or liability on an internet service provider or the user of an interactive computer service. Subsection H provides definitions that are used throughout the Act. And then finally, subsection I provides that the provisions of the section are declared severable. And I can take any questions.
Thank you so much. Committee, do you have any questions for our advisor, Representative Titus?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I remember when we did this last time, there's some discussion about the percentage of content. Do you recall, did we do any research or anything into the other legal thresholds of where that number's okay or higher? I know, I remember hearing a 33% in the hearing, but I'm just trying to remember if there was a line or any research we've done on that.
Madam Chair, Representative Titus, I know I didn't do any research, and I don't recall that you asked legislative research to do any. They can respond to if they think. I do recall that during testimony, you heard that I think maybe some states have done something with the 33% mark. I would have to look at other states' legislation. I suspect the proponents probably know that. So you can ask them, but ours, the bill in front of you would be 25% as it stands right now.
Committee, any other questions? Representative Curtis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did those documents get emailed to us? I was looking for, I didn't see it emailed.
Okay, let me ask. Okay, did others get it in your email? Do you know? Have you may access your documents a different way. That's right. S Drive and online. Okay, maybe we could.
Please also tell me what the House bill number was.
Yes, it was House Bill 2592, and we heard that on February 7th, I believe. Let me double check that date. Sorry, February 7th. It didn't sound right. Okay, let us know if it doesn't come to you. Representative Osmond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Natalie, I have a question, perhaps not for you. I will ask the question, and if you're not able to answer it, perhaps the proponents, one of the proponents might be able to do so.
Favorite kind of question.
If a third-party entity has actually knowingly retained identifying information, and that third party might be outside of the United States, number one, how would somebody know that that's occurred? And number two, how would they go about their cause of action in order to obtain damages because of that?
Madam Chair, Representative Osmond, I think your first question related to that, they have to, first of all, they have to be retaining that information knowingly. So they have to be, it can't just be like an accidental retention of that information. But in order for that subsection to apply, which we're looking on page 2 at subsection F, an individual whose information was retained would have to bring that cause of action. So I don't know how exactly they would know that happened, but that's the only way for them to get relief under that section is for them to somehow find that out. In terms of that entity not being located in the United States, I think that would create, some complications related to jurisdiction. Obviously, if part of the offense would have happened in the United States in Kansas because their information was retained. So it's possible that, they could get jurisdiction over that entity. But I think maintaining a lawsuit over them would be quite difficult since they're not located here.
Were there any other questions for Natalie? Okay, thank you, Natalie. So committee, you'll notice our proponents, there's a little bit different than what we had in this bill previously, and also neutral and proponent, neutral and opponent a little bit different. So we're just going to go ahead and have the hearing, the complete hearing. So first of all, we will call on Dr. Edward Lange from the James Madison Institute. I believe he's with us on WebEx. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Just one moment, my internet's a little bit slow. Chair Humphreys and Ranking Member Heiberger, thank you for the opportunity to testify this afternoon. My name is Dr. Edward Long, and I direct the Center for Technology and Innovation at the James Madison Institute, a think tank based in Tallahassee, Florida. We applaud the efforts of the bill sponsor, this committee, and the Kansas Legislature to protect teens from harmful content. We share many of the same values as members of this committee, specifically a steadfast commitment to competitive enterprise, the principles of our founding generation, and a belief in individual liberty and responsibility. As an informational witness, I'm only here today to outline what other states have done to keep teenagers away from harmful content online, and I hope it can be used to guide lawmakers here in Topeka. To date, 8 states have passed laws that require users to undergo age verification to access harmful content. The first was Louisiana, and states like Utah, Virginia, North Carolina, Montana, among others. These states have all defined substantial presence of harmful content at 33 1/3%, slightly higher than the 25% proposed here in Senate Bill 395. For 2 reasons, the James Madison Institute encourages lawmakers to align its definition with other states. Firstly, federal courts have hitherto upheld the definition of substantial presence at 33 1/3%, meaning that anything lower could present constitutional challenges. While the difference may seem insignificant, it could be the difference between Senate Bill 394 surviving constitutional scrutiny and protecting teenagers, or being struck down, leaving teenagers free to access harmful content, a reality nobody on this committee and many people in the room wants. Secondly, as previously mentioned, every other state has passed similar legislation that has the limit set at 33.33%. If Kansas establishes a lower limit, it could create a balkanized internet when harmonization creates higher standards for protecting teenagers from harmful content and ensures parents understand their rights and protections. We again thank the bill sponsor, this committee, and the Kansas Legislature for their work and interest in protecting teens from harmful content. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We're going to go ahead and do questions if that's okay with you. Committee, what questions do you have for Dr. Lange? Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Dr. Lange, thank you for reading your testimony to the committee today. I note first in your written testimony that you describe your employer as a think tank based in Tallahassee, Florida. Who are the funders of your think tank?
We have funders from across the board, Representative.
Can you give us examples?
I think we're all here to talk about the bill.
I'll take your answer. If you don't want to tell us who your funders are, that's okay. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, I was only going to say, my responsibilities with, to support lawmakers and to help keep, to support lawmakers in, legislating to keep teens safe online. So I don't have too much involvement.
Well, my question was directed to the matter of bias on the part of a witness. My second question, though, refers to the federal courts that you reference who have heretofore upheld the definition of substantial presence, etc. Do you have the citations to the cases upon which you rely in your written testimony?
Yep. So that was the Texas case that I believe it was. That was Paxton. That was the Paxton case out in Texas. I don't have the specific case to hand, but that was, I believe, last year.
And so you are actually making reference to only one decision out of the state of Texas. Is that correct?
That's the only case. That's the current only case law.
Okay. I'm just asking, what are the cases to which you allude in your written testimony? And you've described a case called Paxton out of Texas. Are there any others that I should look up?
That's currently the only case law.
Okay. And is that a federal district court case out of Texas?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know who the other party was so as to make it easy for our research staff to retrieve the cases upon which you rely?
So, Dr. Lange, I feel like you could, if you can find that information out, you could send it to us and then we'll all have the information of the exact name of the case. So if you could do it that way, that would be great.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's very helpful, and thank you for the time.
Other questions for Dr. Lange? Anybody else? Representative Osmond.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for your testimony. So I understand that your obligation is to protect children. And as a father of children myself, I also agree that we need to protect children. But the question that I have for you is whether the safety of children is outweighed by privacy rights of a person who is of legal age doing legal activities. And how do you determine that one outweighs the other in terms of need?
I will say, Representative, I am only here as an informational witness. I sort of don't want to get in down to that. My only suggestion, and I only sort of very intentionally focused my testimony around suggesting that this committee focus its attention around harmonizing with other bills. I will obviously defer to this committee, the legislature, as elected representatives from the people of Kansas, to make that determination.
Okay, thank you very much.
Committee, any other questions for the doctor? Okay, thank you. We do appreciate you
Madam
appearing.
Chair, can I just interject? The case I referenced earlier was the Free Speech Coalition versus Paxton.
Free Speech Coalition? Is that what you? Okay.
Yeah, and they're a trade association of adult entertainers.
Madam Chair, I've located Net Choice versus Paxton, a United States Supreme Court case out of the Fourth Circuit, February, I believe, of 24, I think it is. I could be wrong, maybe a 22 decision. Is it the same case? I just want to make sure we're...
So I think, Representative, you might be referencing the content moderation cases.
Okay, so, all right. I'll track back.
We'll look it up. Okay.
I'm just... Yep. Did we get the citations so that...
No, but we could still get that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. All right, committee, we will go on. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. We'll go on to the next proponents, Brittany Jones from the Kansas Family Voice. Welcome to committee.
Thank you so much for having me again. It's so good to be before you on this lovely March day. My name is Brittany Jones. I am the Director of Policy and Engagement for Kansas Family Voice. I want to address one thing. Can y'all hear me? I want to address one thing quickly. It is very important when you're looking at legal cases in this arena to know the difference between the social media content moderation cases and the pornography age verification cases. The legal threads are very, very different, and I believe that what was just highlighted in the questions that were asked to the prior proponent highlight that. One of the cases being referred to was about age verification for pornography. The other one was about age verification for social media. Courts have looked at those cases very differently and have tended to uphold age verification cases for pornography and not so much on the social media side. There's a lot more contention there. And I think part of that reason is because the harms of pornography are so known, so understood, and are having such a pervasive impact on our entire society. I won't go into details on the harms. You have testimony before you, and you've already heard testimony on the harms of pornography, but it has vast impacts on individuals who view its brain but especially has that impact on vulnerable youth whose brains are not fully formed yet. And so that is a lot of the reason why courts have given a lot more deference to these cases than they did, say, 20 years ago. Now, moving on to the legal side of things, I would like to address the 33%. It's a 33.33% to be precise. That is what was politically decided in Louisiana. It was a political negotiation. The number means nothing. The number has not come up in any of the court cases. None of the courts have addressed it. They didn't make any legal decisions based upon the number. It's a politically negotiated number, which I think is actually harder to enforce than a 25% number. What's a third of data content? The important thing to note about the way our bill is written is it ties it specifically to the pages viewed. The other bills have not tied it to the pages viewed. This ensures that pornographic websites cannot then go and flood their websites with other content, the Bill of Rights, cartoons, any of those things, in order to dilute the percentage of content on their page, thereby skirting the law. So I believe, and several of the other proponents that you'll see their testimony today believe that our law is actually stronger than the other states' laws and is more enforceable for those reasons. Now, we do know that there have been court cases about 20 years ago that struck down similar laws to this court case, but we are now seeing that the circuit courts and the district courts are beginning to agree that pornography is a harm, that there is a compelling state interest in protecting minors from that harm, and that this is narrowly tailored to meet that harm. So we've already seen the Fifth Circuit allow Texas's law to go into place, which is a different case than the one that was most recently referenced. But it is that Free Speech Coalition versus Paxton is the case about pornography. So we do believe that we should join these 8 other states that are protecting children from pornography. We do believe that this bill will be enforceable. We enforce laws like this all the time. The Attorney General has that ability, as well as the private right of action. And so we ask that you support SB 394 when the time comes, and I stand open for questions at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. Committee, do you have any questions for Ms. Jones? Representative Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brittany, if every state adopts a different percentage, do you think that would lead to problems with enforcement and consistency of access? And or does the technology just sort of take care of that?
I mean, I think the point of the 25% is to ensure, or the 33% is to ensure that we're targeting pornography providers, those who are profiting off of children. And so I think courts would have to sort out how that would be enforced. And, the providers would have the pornographic websites would have to figure some of those things out. But I don't believe that it would cause a legal problem whatsoever.
I'm not asking for sympathy for the websites. I don't want to lose a part of the law.
Absolutely.
Consistency or enforcement's sake.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I completely understand that.
Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Jones, just so that I'm clear, is your organization advocating for 25%, 33%, or some other number?
We are advocating for SB 394 as written, which is at 25% of the pages viewed in a calendar month.
Why not 10%? Why not 0%? Why not 50%?
Valid question, which was to my point, which is why the 33.3% was a negotiated number. 25%, we believe, targets is clear on what this bill is about. We're not trying to include Google. We're not trying to include any of these sites that might tangentially have a passing percentage of what might be deemed materials that are harmful to minors. This is to ensure that websites and companies that are profiting off of children and feeding them harmful materials have to provide age verification.
So under what you advocate, if 24% of the content is dirty pictures, harmful to minors, that's going to be okay. It's only when it reaches 25%.
So it's 25% of the pages viewed per month. That means that the
pages viewed, I'm sorry.
Yes, it's pages viewed per month. That means the reason people are going to that page is to view pornography. So it's a pornographic website.
But 24% means they're not looking for pornography?
Not necessarily, but this bill is targeted.
Okay, committee, any other questions for Ms. Jones? Representative Martinez. I'm so sorry.
Orpesa. I
didn't even hear the substitution, and I didn't know you were coming today, but welcome to committee, and please forgive me.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is what data do you have in regards to that this is harmful to minors?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit of data in my testimony, as well as the testimony of the Heritage Action, as well as others that you'll see from our prior committee that didn't all resubmit their testimony. But there's quite a bit of data talking about the number of children that are stumbling upon pornography, but also the impact that it has on their ability to form relationships, to view sex in a healthy way, as well as their ability to interact well in the world socially.
Yeah.
Committee, do you have any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
We'll make one note that I forgot to say. This did pass the Senate 40-0. And so I think that it just shows that this is a bipartisan issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Chuck Weber, the Executive Director of the Kansas Catholic Conference. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for your persistence in moving this bill through the process. It's a serious issue that the Catholic Church takes great interest in. My name is Chuck Weber. I'm the Executive Director of the Kansas Catholic Conference. We're the public policy voice for the Kansas Catholic bishops. Defending the integrity and health of the family is a core value of Catholic teaching of the Catholic Church. And so we know that pornography hurts the family, particularly well, when anyone views it, but in particular when children are exposed to it. So SB 394 will hold purveyors of pornography accountable if obscene materials that they peddle will be seen by children. And so we believe that SB 394 will significantly stem the flow of pornography here in Kansas, particularly to our young people. I'd like to just remind the committee, and I mentioned this, it was a month ago when I testified that 7 years ago, when I was a member of the Kansas House, I carried a resolution that called upon pornography to be recognized as a public health hazard. And that was passed by big margins. And I know that there were some faces present here today that were voting that day. So it was also voted on in the House and the Senate. But that resolution, sometimes you think that, a resolution doesn't mean anything, but it's sort of a foundation for moving forward. And I just want to borrow a paragraph from that resolution where it says, we recognize the need for additional education, prevention, research, and policy change at the community and societal levels, and we urge this chamber and other governing bodies to take appropriate steps to ensure progress is made. So this is the next step, if you will, from that 2017 action. You can do something that has some real teeth to it. It's not just a resolution. It's going to significantly, we believe, significantly cut down the amount of pornography that is available to children and causing harm. So we ask for your support, and I would stand for questions.
Thank you. Committee, do you have any questions for Mr. Weber? Representative Carmichael.
Thank you. Mr. Weber, who are the funders of the Kansas Catholic Conference upon for whom you testified today and presumably you're employed by?
The people of the Catholic people of Kansas.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions, committee, for Mr. Representative Vaughn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't know if this is the correct question for you, Mr. Weber, but I did see that you're the last oral proponent, so I might ask it, and whoever feels they are best able to answer it is welcome. If the chair allows. So I think in the last hearing I kind of mentioned, I think we're all supportive of this concept. My main concern is around the privacy element, the data, and making sure that that doesn't harm the children in particular, the collection of that data, or infringe upon their privacy also. So I guess my question is, for the identifying information, there are substantial records that can be collected to identify who the individual is. Things like criminal records, medical health records, social security number, biometric information, disabilities, socioeconomic information, food purchases, political affiliations, religious information, text messages, documents, employment identifiers, etc., and geolocation information, which is kind of concerning. So I guess my main question is, why were these data indicators selected, and is it necessary for it to be so comprehensive versus just, for example, like when you go on a website and they sell alcohol, they ask that you identify your age and you put your age in, and that's verified. So I know that might not be sufficient for accomplishing what we're hoping to accomplish in this bill, but is it really necessary to allow all of that data collection, or is there a more narrowly tailored way to get to that ultimate goal, if that makes sense?
I think the ultimate goal is to prevent minors from consuming and seeing pornography. So I guess I would defer to either the reviser or maybe Ms. Jones or someone else on that. I'm not aware of the data collection element of this. So I don't know if that.
Yeah,
probably an incomplete answer. I know it's an incomplete answer. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would open that up. That is one of my concerns, is that I feel like that is a lot of data. And while they can be, let's see. It is possible for a suit to be brought against them if they knowingly retain that information, but it is possible that they would unknowingly retain that information, hypothetically, and that could also lead to some privacy concerns. So that's one thing that I'm hoping to get some clarification on if we can. Thank you.
So, Representative Vaughn, if I could just kind of piggyback on that. So that's the definition in the definition section, section H, of identifying information. And I'm wondering if so that is used up in section F. Is that the only place, Natalie, that those words are used, identifying information? Because I'm just trying to, it's a definition of something. So what is it a definition of in the bill? I think it would be good to know.
Yeah, let me do a quick search throughout the whole bill just to make sure that that's the only place.
You see it again. Okay, just a second. We're getting an answer. Just a second.
So it looks like it is just in subsection F in those two. There's one instance in paragraph 1 and one in paragraph 2, and then the definition obviously in paragraph 5.
Okay, so if I could ask a question maybe to Ms. Jones, or you go. Okay, so actually, I think what the bill says is that there has to be age verification through the use of a third-party commercial available database. It doesn't say we're collecting all that information. I think what I'm seeing in the definition has to do with they may not retain any of that if they happen to get it. But go ahead.
Brittany Jones, Kansas Family Voice. The point of that expansive definition is to ensure they don't retain anything. We didn't want to leave anything out that they could potentially retain. If that's not dictating how they do the age verification, the age verification is either chosen by the AG or it has to be commercially verifiable method based on the international standards. But that definition is expansive in order to protect consumers. So they can't retain, we didn't leave something out that they could retain.
And would you say it's the same sort of age verification that's used in, our online sport gaming that we now have passed? So
that's one of the models. Yes, I mean there are lots of different kinds of age verification, and it can be selected if it's one of those commercially reasonable options.
Okay, thank you. Okay, committee. Are there any other questions for Mr. Weber or Ms. Jones? Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These questions about personally identifiable information and the privacy of those of that information causes me to have an additional inquiry of Mr. Weber. Mr. Weber, as you may recall, when we heard the companion legislation, or the sister bill, if you will, back in early February, we had a gentleman over WebEx. I think it was 10 o'clock at night in England. The light was somewhat bluish. And in response to questions by the committee, he indicated, well, if you don't have a driver's license, you can send us a copy of your passport. I'd like to know how it is that we are going to guarantee the security of documents which are even related to the national defense if the verifier of this information is located in foreign countries, maybe in an apartment in London, maybe even in the Czech Republic. Now, I understand that when we have brick and mortar casinos licensed by the Gaming Commission, that we have people who have direct authority, but how are you going to protect the security and even the sanctity, if you will, of information like copies of people's passports if they've been sent to the Czech Republic?
I'm unable to answer your question because
Thank you.
It's not my competency.
If you're not able to answer the question, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not either.
Any other questions, committee? Okay, thank you so much for being with us. There's written only testimony by Eli Huber, Kansas State Director of the Heritage Action for America. If you all, the committee, please make sure you take a look at that written proponent testimony. And then we have neutral testimony from Ruthie Barco, the Executive Director, Central USA TechNet. So, Ms. Barco, welcome to Judiciary Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and we can't see you yet. Are you? There you are. Okay. Yeah.
Apologies, forgot about the camera. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Ruthie Barco. I represent TechNet, and we testify today to respectfully ask for amendment to Senate Bill 394 in order to avoid significantly detrimental impact across a variety of services within Kansas. TechNet is the national bipartisan network of technology CEOs and senior executives. We promote the growth of the innovation economy, and our diverse membership represents over 4.2 million employees and countless consumers in information technology, artificial intelligence, e-commerce, the gig economies, transportation, and cybersecurity, to name just a few. TechNet supports the intent of this bill, and we ask that this bill is amended to further align with the 2022 Louisiana House Bill 142. We previously asked for these same amendments on this bill in the Senate, as well as on our written testimony on the companion bill to this bill. Our members are committed to online safety, and we work very hard to give users the tools to create the online experience that fits their needs and those of their families. They provide software solutions, and many content platforms employ entire teams of specialists who work to identify, remove, and report illegal content. Member companies partner with law enforcement, educational institutions, nonprofits, government agencies, and a wide range of organizations to provide consumer education to help protect children and adults from illegal and distasteful content on the internet. An educated consumer armed with technology is always the best protection against unwanted online interactions. TechNet members have also empowered customers with a range of tools to customize their online experience, whether it's parental controls on streaming television services or smartphone apps that help families manage their digital life across all connected devices. Families have options when it comes to filtering content. There are many commercial as well as free content filtering and blocking solutions available that enable consumers to protect their families and themselves from any illegal or inappropriate content. These are widely available, both integrated and as independent solutions for a wide range of technologies that our members provide. So we do have alignment with other states as our paramount concern for this bill. In 2022, when Louisiana House Bill 142 was passed, we worked throughout the process there, TechNet did, to ensure that the law would protect minors while also creating a framework that does not create an overly broad application that would affect private companies that do not publish or distribute harmful content. States have since considered similar laws and have looked to align them with this original law, and that is what we're asking for with this bill. Substantial work was done to refine the language in House Bill 142 to avoid unintended consequences. Bills in this area that are not aligned can have unintended consequences of platforms having to decide to ban entire categories of users and content and services for fear of being found liable under the application of overly broad language, especially when there's a civil liability as in this bill. Therefore, we ask that Senate Bill 394 is further aligned with the engrossed language of House Bill 142 for Louisiana in 2022 to keep an interoperable environment for businesses and to provide regulatory certainty, because the internet does not stop at state borders. So now that this has kind of become a standard and a threshold, we are asking that Section 1A, page 1, line 9 is aligned with for the other states at a rate of 33.33%, as was discussed previously by this committee, rather than the 25% that's currently drafted in the bill, as no other state has used that threshold. We look forward to continuing to work with the committee, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you. And I apologize, I'm a little sick.
Sorry to hear that. Hope you feel better, but committee, do you have any questions? Well, I'll call on Representative Carmichael first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do appreciate you testifying quickly, even though you were sick. Our time is always precious here. Thank you, Ms. Barco. I note in your written testimony, Ms. Barco, that you indicate that TechNet members have also empowered consumers with a number of tools to customize their online experience, and goes on to discuss parental controls, streaming television services, smartphone apps, etc., and talk about that there are many commercial free content filtering and blocking solutions available to enable consumers to protect their families and their selves from illegal or inappropriate content. I mean, I'm familiar with Net Nanny It's been out there for years. My wife, when she worked for a child care related provider, they used a more sophisticated program to make sure that their employees were not visiting inappropriate websites on company computers. And as far as I know, these systems work. Do systems that are available to individual consumers who want to protect their children from being exposed to this undesirable material, are there in fact consumer-based solutions so that individual parents can make decisions about what they want or don't want their children viewing?
Thank you, Representative. Yes. So if you actually go to technet.org
I'm looking
slash
at it now.
slash child safety online, we actually provide specifics about what many of our members have provided in this area and the specific tools that they've developed. So our members have led the way, and have really led on how these different tools have been developed. They have invested, millions of dollars, countless, and capital to ensure that these tools are available to consumers as free tools and free options and free settings.
They're
Um,
free? They're
well,
free? They don't
what
cost anything?
Well, when you're looking at
Oh, I'm happy to hear that.
what we've listed for technet.org slash child safety online, these are the tools, the settings, and the capabilities that our members provide to parents on their platforms to customize their children's experience online. So I don't think they're charging extra for these. I think these are settings that are provided that are provided as educational tools for parents to learn how to use them and customize them. It can be sometimes outside of the technical expertise of parents to know exactly how to customize these settings. So there's a lot of educational options as well provided by our members to ensure that parents understand what their resources are.
Do these tools work?
As far as I know, I would direct you as well to the subject matter experts, the engineers, and the children's safety teams on all of these platforms who would be able to provide more specific information for each of their platforms that I cannot speak to. But as far as we know, that they are very sophisticated tools and have required a great deal of intellectual property investment, engineering investment from our members, to try to provide the best tools that they can for the consumers.
If I may wrap this up with one
What-
more question, Madam Chair.
I have two others waiting. So
Oh, well, that's fine. Let's
Okay.
go ahead and let others ask. And
Okay, if we have time,
I've learned a lot here
back
today.
to
Thank you
you.
so much, Ms. Barco.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about Kansas recently passed gambling online. And I'm interested if TechNet provided neutral opposition or proponent testimony when that was passed in Kansas. And if not, why didn't you get on board with these tools when we were going to pass gambling?
Thank you, Representative. We did not chime in on the gambling issue in Kansas. We actually do not represent the gaming space.
Right. So those tools that you offer, do they also work for gambling websites or?
Representative, they are tools and settings that work when you are on these platforms. So I don't think any of these platforms actually function as gaming sites, to my knowledge. But I assume if a parent wanted to filter out certain access for their child, I think there would be ways that they could do that on some of these platforms or services. I could get back to you on that. I'm not sure if that's what your question is.
Well, my question is when the kids are accessing gambling websites or the advertisements from gambling websites, would your tools keep them from accessing the actual ability to gamble on those websites?
I don't think the tools actually would, Representative. The liability and the responsibility for that would be on the gambling websites themselves that are subject under the law to do the age verification and the age gating to keep minors from accessing those services.
Right. So the gambling websites are on their own to keep that from happening, but not the pornography websites. Thank you.
Representative Estes.
Thank you. When I look at the Louisiana law, there was testimony earlier that you really could loophole the Louisiana law by posting extra content that is not considered pornography. And I like this bill because it puts it into that. If you don't like this way of doing it, is there another way that you would suggest that we shut down that loophole?
Oh, I think you're
Thank you.
muted. Yeah.
I'm not sure that I agree that that loophole would work. Um, yeah, hypothetically, I see what their point is, but I think the concern here and why we're asking for the 33 and a third really goes back to just interoperability between other states and regulatory certainty. So if I would have to look back at the legislative history and the legislative record on the 33 and a third for additional details on that, which we can provide as to why they settled on that exact number. But since states have enacted that number, that's why we're pointing to that just from a pure area of interoperability between states on this issue. But we don't necessarily see, because of the other restrictions in place on this, I don't think that it would function as a loophole in practice.
Thank you.
Committee, are there other questions? Representative Vaughn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Barco. I kind of going off of that question, so you do specifically reference the Louisiana House Bill 142. Other than the percentage and wanting to have those aligned, were there any other provisions in the Louisiana bill that you felt were important to have reflected in this bill, or is it primarily the percentage that you're concerned about?
Thank you, Representative. Our amendment request at this time is limited really only to that threshold.
That's helpful. Thank you.
And Ms. Barker, do you have a copy of that amendment, or was that part? I don't see it in your testimony.
Thank you. We did not provide a specific markup, Representative. It's at the second to last paragraph where we just list page 1, line 9, and the direct citation to where it is in the statute. But I'm happy to provide a more formal amendment if that is helpful.
No, I just wanted to see if it's only page 1, line 9, 25% changes to 33 and a third or something. That's what it was. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, committee, any other questions for Ms. Barco? Okay, then I think we'll move on. We appreciate you being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have opponent testimony from Hope Ledford, the policy analyst from Chamber of Progress on WebEx.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and
great.
we can
Thank
see you too.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Hope Ledford. I'm policy analyst at Chamber of Progress, a tech industry association promoting technology's progressive future. Our partners include social media companies like Snap and Automatic, but they do not have a vote or veto over our policy positions. We advocate for safeguarding sensitive data and support comprehensive privacy concerns. We also strongly support making the internet safe for young people. I'm here today in opposition of SB 394, which would compromise online privacy and disproportionately harm historically marginalized youth. As written, SB 394 mandates covered companies to verify the identity and age of all users. Outsourcing to third parties does not diminish privacy concerns, but relocates it. Age estimation demands extra data, contradicting minimization efforts. This leaves many adults facing a dilemma: share personal data for access to protected speech, or forgo the service entirely. SB 394 also aims to ban individuals under 18 from specific internet sites, a significant privacy intrusion that courts have ruled unconstitutional. This overly broad ban jeopardizes free speech and isolates Kansas youth from essential connections, creative platforms, and vital resources. An open internet, free from government surveillance and censorship, is crucial for modern freedom of expression. While the state has valid concerns about internet-related harms, measures must not excessively encroach on First Amendment freedoms. SB 394 could lead to private legal actions against internet companies by parents or guardians, potentially harming marginalized and at-risk youth. A majority of adolescents reported that online engagement offers acceptance, support during tough times, creative outlets, and connection with friends. Moreover, LGBTQ+ youth rely on online platforms to support and for support and information about their identities. Lastly, requiring companies to collect extensive personal data from so many users could heighten cybersecurity risks, especially for services that cater to LGBTQ+ communities. Privacy violations online often lead to offline violence. In 2022, 54% of LGBTQ+ survey respondents reported experiencing severe harassment, including stalking, physical threats, and doxing. SB 394 would prevent teens younger than 18 from accessing internet content without verifying their age and would jeopardize the privacy of all internet users and unfairly impact LGBTQ+ youth. These individuals have been consistently targeted by the legislative majority in recent years, and this legislation would perpetuate that harmful trend. For these reasons, we encourage you to oppose SB 394. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, do you have any questions for Ms. Ledford? Any questions? Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Ledford, in your testimony, you make some, perhaps even I could say considerable reference to impacts on LGBTQ+ community. In your work, have you found that there are in fact some people and even some parents who believe that any depictions or information regarding same-sex relationships are, at least in those people's view, harmful to minors?
Thank you, Representative. Marginalized and at-risk youth have the most to gain from social media engagement, especially if they face adversity or isolation offline. Not everyone has supportive parents at home, and so this bill could further isolate marginalized communities.
The reason that I ask, Ms. Ledford, is this bill.
Point of order. It's not on the bill.
What? It's the testimony of the witness on the bill. I'm discussing directly the witness's testimony.
Testimony was regarding the bill.
It's testimony in opposition to SB 394.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the point of order. Representative, you'll just keep your questioning to the bill. I'm not saying one way or the other. Just continue. Please make sure you're questioning about the bill. Thank you.
Point of parliamentary inquiry, Madam Chair. Does that mean that members of the committee cannot ask conferees about the contents of their testimony as offered and allowed by the chair? I mean, this is pretty blatant what's being sought to do here. We have a witness who's testifying on the bill.
We're going to continue with the hearing. And so if you have questions,
yes, I do have a question.
Okay, please go ahead.
The bill itself purports to prohibit materials or access to materials that are deemed harmful to minors. And then there are various criterion about who and how determines what is material harmful to minors. And I think my inquiry of you is, in your work, have you learned that, I'll put it this way, that there can be substantial differences between some parents as to whether particular materials are or are not harmful to minors? For example, the 97 books we saw on 60 Minutes Sunday night.
Thank you for your question, Representative. I don't have any statistics in front of me, but if I were to guess, I would say that parents do differ in what they consider harmful content.
Thank you very much.
Committee, are there any other questions? Representative Estes.
Thank you. When I read the bill, it's about pornography, and when I read your testimony, it's about allowing LGBTQ plus youth to support each other. So is your objection because you believe pornography is happening in the places where they're interacting with each other?
Thank you, Representative. No, our concerns are mainly revolving around privacy, and then also the bill, we do not believe, defines what's harmful to children, so that could be used against marginalized communities where children in unsupportive homes use the internet to find help or resources.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, while we're waiting for one other thing, do we have other questions? I might just quickly want to ask you a question. You do mention extensive personal data that's gathered, and it's really just age verification from my understanding of the bill, that what the bill is trying to do is determine if someone is of the proper age. And so did you find somewhere else in the bill that they would be getting other data other than just an age verification?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your question. Our foundation upon this is mainly due to the fact that age-appropriate design legislation violates, infringes upon the First Amendment.
Okay, thank you. And there is a definition of harmful to minors in the bill, and it references KSA 21-6402. I've asked the revisor to read that definition. If it's, how long is it, Natalie? Is it long?
It's a little bit long. You may recall, Madam Chair, that I actually did read this last time, and I'm happy to read it again.
Okay. I think it could be pertinent to the situation. Thank you.
Harmful to minors means that quality, any description, exhibition, presentation, or representation in whatever form of nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, or sadomasochistic abuse when the material or performance taken as a whole or with respect to a prosecution for an act described in subsection A1, that portion of the material that was actually exposed to the view of minors has the following characteristics. First, the average adult person applying contemporary community standards would find that the material or performance has a predominant tendency to appeal to prurient interest in sex to minors. The average adult person applying contemporary community standards would find that the material or performance depicts or describes nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, or sadomasochistic abuse in a manner that is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community with respect to what is suitable for minors, and a reasonable person would find that the material or performance lacks serious literary, scientific, educational, artistic, or political value for minors. And I would note those last three, A, B, and C, that's a conjunctive list. So you have to meet all three of those requirements.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, committee. I just thought that might be helpful since it is referenced in the bill. Appreciate you doing that, Natalie. Thank you. Do we have any other questions, committee? Representative Vaughn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, so going back to, the comment that this is solely for age verification, looking back at those definitions, it does say age and identity verification. So I am just kind of wondering, what is the reason for needing identity verification? If age verification would suffice to know whether someone should be able to access the website.
Okay, I'm looking at the bill. Or maybe, Ms. Jones, you have an answer to that question, or you weren't listening. That's okay. We're looking at such age verification shall be conducted through the use of, and then it mentions age and identity verification in online kind of 16 through 18 of the bill. And then it mentions it again on line 19. Just what is the, if it's, is it age or is it identity, or what does that mean? How would that be defined?
Trying to pull it up now, but Brittany Jones, Kansas Family Voice. That might need to go to the revisor who drafted it the way he specifically wrote it that way. But it's only about the age. So I'm not looking at it right now. So I'd have to pull it up to look at it.
And I'm open to that discussion. Again, it's just kind of thank you, Madam Chair, kind of the privacy question of, do we need to verify both their age and their identity, or if the purpose is to verify age?
The purpose is to verify age. Okay.
So that helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, committee, any other questions? All right. So I don't have any other proponent, neutral, or opponent testimony from Senate Bill 394. I'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 394. Committee, now I would ask you to, if you have folders or whatever, however you organize your work, We're going to take a look again at House Bill 2510. It's a bill that was not passed out of the committee. If you all recall, there was no formal action taken on it because it was not passed out of the committee. And so it is open again for discussion. I'm going to bring it up again that we may discuss it. And
Madam Chair?
yes, Representative Osmond, you have a question?
Yes. So I think that there was final action because that's when we work the bill and we make a determination and we put it to a vote, that is final action. So are you looking to, are you looking to revisit this? Are you looking to, what is it that we are trying to do with this particular bill?
Yeah. So actually our House rules say formal action. And according to those that I've spoken to and looked at the House rule, that when a bill does not pass out of the committee, it's still sitting in the committee. It's just there. And so it is able to be brought up again. So the formal action, or maybe you would call it final action, but the House rules say formal action. That's when we pass it out and it moves to the next step. But at the moment, there's been no formal action on the bill because it is still sitting in the committee after a no vote. So, do you have a question?
That might be the case. I would just ask if the revisor would be able to weigh in on this. If this is something that we are doing a reconsideration of a vote for, or if this is something that that had final action at a previous time, and we're bringing it back up, and if that's even possible under the rules.
Natalie, you go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The chair is actually the arbiter of all rules decisions. So, if this is her ruling, you can always challenge that ruling. The only thing I could really provide you would be to read you the rule that she's referring to, and then you guys can make your arguments as you see fit.
So it is my intention to bring it back up as to work the bill again because it is still sitting in our committee, and that's what I intend to do today. Representative Carmichael.
Madam Chair, the revisor has offered to read the rule just so we're all clear. Would it be permissible to have the citation to what the rule is and then perhaps hear the rule just so that we're clear of what we're doing here today?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, so the rule in question is Rule 1306, which relates to voting in committees. Subsection A provides all final actions by a committee shall be taken at a called meeting while the legislature is in session. The final action taken shall be recorded in the committee minutes, and individual members' vote may be recorded at the member's request. Subsection B provides the committee chairperson may vote, but shall not be required to vote unless the committee is equally divided. If the chairperson's vote makes the division equal, the question shall be lost. And then C, which I think is the relevant subsection here, an action formally taken by a committee cannot be altered in the committee except by reconsideration and further formal action of the committee. And then finally, D, a motion to take from the table may be adopted by the affirmative vote of a majority of the members present at any called meeting of the committee.
Representative Osmond.
Thank you very much, Natalie. That does seem to be my recollection as well. So it seems as if under Part 3 or Part C, it talks about a reconsideration in that as a way to bring it back up. And I would argue that any reconsideration has to be done within a legislative day or the next legislative day. We've had committee meetings since then, so I don't think that I think that we have passed the time for a reconsideration of vote under the rules of the House.
Okay, I'll just answer what I think is true about that is that there's no time limit that talks about in that reconsideration. We know that a committee is very different than what we have on the House. And sometimes we say if you voted on the prevailing side, then you may ask for a reconsideration. In committee, we don't take roll of all the votes. So we don't actually officially know who was on the prevailing side. In this case, we did raise hands, but there was no record of who was on the prevailing side. Okay. And so it's as the chair, I would say, and traditionally this has been true that when a bill is not passed out of the committee, it's still in the committee. If it's not passed out, it's still in the committee. And that's where I'm coming from with that. And so we don't need to have a reconsideration because we didn't formally move it out of committee. Representative Owens?
You explained it just as well as I would have. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Representative Carmichael?
Madam Chair, point of order under Rule 13.06, parent C, parent. While the bill is still in the committee, it does require a motion for reconsideration to take it up once there has been, quote, final action or action taken on the bill. The action before was to not recommend the bill. And in order for us to go back to the bill, there has to be a motion for reconsideration duly passed. That's my point of order.
And I would say it says formal action in section C.
And I
that
appeal.
I'm saying that we didn't take formal action. Representative Landwehr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm a little confused as to why we're looking at House rules when it's the committee rules that rule in this room, as does the chair. Because over the years of my tenure, whether it's myself or other chairs, we have brought bills up when they were retained in the committee, and that has not been a problem. I've never had to address anything from the House rules. It's the rules that the committee has, and it's the chair's decision.
Madam Chair, I appeal from the prior decision of I appeal from the decision of the chair.
You may, but I need to call on you. If you would like to speak, I call on you every time.
I was attempting to appeal from your decision. You refused to recognize me. The rules actually provided the member may then attempt to take charge of the meeting. If you will call on me, I will then appeal from the decision.
Okay, I would appreciate it if you don't interrupt. I will call on you, and I thought you were finished, and I knew Representative Landwehr had a comment, and I called on her. And I always call on you when I see your hand up, and you know that.
Finished.
So what would you like to say?
Number one, the House rules control over any committee rule, and I appeal from the prior decision of the chair.
Just a minute. Maybe just 1 second. Okay, I'm going to go back to section C, which says an action formally taken may be brought up by reconsideration. It doesn't say, so I'm going to say we didn't take a formal action. That is my ruling. We didn't take a formal action because the formal action is passing it out of the committee. And I'm going to say we didn't take a formal action. And so we therefore don't have to do the reconsideration. And one more thing. Okay, Representative Owens and then Carmichael.
I was going to confirm what I recall from that day, because if I remember correctly, we haven't seen the minutes yet, but as I recall from that today, we had a motion to pass it out favorably that failed, meaning that sits in the committee with no final action, as you have mentioned.
That's exactly what happened, Representative Carmichael.
The decision not to report the bill favorably is a formal action of the committee. It does excuse me, may I not be interrupted, Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
It is a formal action of the committee to not recommend the bill. The bill remains in committee, and the rule 13.06 sub C provides that the bill may be taken up again, but only on a motion for reconsideration, and I therefore once again appeal from the decision of the chair and request that a vote be held.
Okay, I want to make it clear what we're voting on. We are not voting on reconsideration of this. What you are asking for a vote on is my ruling that formal action was not taken. Is that true?
You're ruling that one, formal action was not taken, and two, we can therefore take up the bill again without a motion for reconsideration. And I appeal from that decision of the chair.
Okay, we will take that. We will start with the first part. As I understand it, you are asking for a vote on, I don't know if, is it a motion? Or is it?
No,
Okay.
it is an appeal from the
Yes,
decision of the
I'm wondering if I have to have a second. That's
No, it does not require a
okay.
second.
Okay, very good. Committee, we're going to vote. I'm not debating. Okay, so you all have heard what Representative Carmichael is asking. He is questioning or what's the right word? Challenging the rule that I said we did not take formal action when we didn't pass it out. It's still in our committee. He's challenging, is that a formal action? I say it is not, and that's the ruling that he's challenging. All those that agree with that challenge, agree with Representative Carmichael, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
No.
Division has been called. So if you agree with the motion, raise your hand, please. If you do not agree and you voted no, raise your hand, please. Okay, I have 5 to 11.
And I will withdraw the second portion of my appeal because based upon that determination, it is appropriate to proceed in the absence of a motion for reconsideration.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, so committee, we're taking up House Bill 2510 to work it. Do we have any amendments? Representative Titus.
Madam Chair, I have an amendment. I think I would have Natalie explain it.
You want Natalie to explain it?
This would be.
Oh, she doesn't like that.
So while Natalie's passing these out and preparing to enlighten everybody on all the technical details of this lengthy amendment, I would just say that this came about as a result of various discussions with interested parties, including Mr. Stafford with the Chamber and the Attorney General's office, with several meetings with them. This outlines a lot of the things they were interested in clarifying in this bill. So that's sort of the intent here as we lay all this out.
Okay, thank you. And Natalie, would you like to give us a bit more technical explanation, if you're willing to do that?
Yes.
Would you like to, or would you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the bulk of the amendment you'll see starts on page 2. Essentially, you're striking most of what was originally proposed in this bill, starting on page 2 at line 17 through lines 22. That's all being stricken. It's replaced with some limitations on discovery of third-party agreements. So it would provide on motion the court can prohibit an inquiry into the existence or non-existence of a third-party agreement. And when making that finding, the court has to consider the political, ideological, or social nature of the case, the likely balance of litigation resources between the parties, whether that inquiry would be proportional to the need of the case, and any other relevant information presented to the parties. So just because a third-party agreement was discoverable doesn't mean that it would justify disclosure as admissible evidence at trial. Further, there should nothing in the section would be construed to require a nonprofit to disclose its members or donors, or to require disclosure of otherwise privileged information. Subsection D there under that clause provides that unless the court finds that that third party agreement would be admissible under the rules of evidence, then disclosure shall not be required in certain circumstances. The first is an action brought by or on behalf of the state or any political subdivision of the state, or seeking to protect against an imminent threat to health or public safety, or an action that's solely in the public interest or on behalf of the general public if the plaintiff does not seek any relief that's different from the relief sought for the general public. The action, if successful, would enforce an important right affecting the public interest, and private enforcement would be necessary and places a disproportionate financial burden on the plaintiff. If that third-party agreement is requested by a party, then at the disclosing party's request, the court was required to issue an order to protect discovery of third-party agreements from disclosure other than to those parties, so that it wouldn't get to anyone else. So it can only go to the parties counsel, experts, and other necessary entities to the legal claim. Paragraph C there requires some reporting of third-party agreements. So on and after the effective date of this act, which is July 1st, 2024, a third-party agreement would have to be reported to the Judicial Council within 45 days after the commencement of an action in a Kansas court where that third-party agreement exists, or within 45 days after that third-party agreement is entered into, whichever one is later. The Judicial Council is required to provide that person who reported the agreement documentation showing that they did indeed make that report in compliance with the law. And a third-party agreement that is not reported is void and unenforceable unless it's one of those agreements talked about up in subparagraph D up there under clause 2. The clerk of the Supreme Court would be required to prescribe a form for use for the reporting under the subparagraph. That form has to include a method of reporting whether the third-party agreement is a foreign third-party agreement, and then any other information that's determined to be necessary for the Judicial Council to complete a study, which we'll talk about in a minute. Reports received pursuant to this reporting subparagraph would be confidential and not subject to the provisions of CORA. And then if you go on to page 3, on or before July 1st of 2027, the Judicial Council would be required to put a study committee together to study the issue of third-party agreements in Kansas. That committee would be required to review all the reports that were received and any other information relating to those agreements. And then sometime between September 1st of 2028 and September 1st of 2028 and December 1st of 2028, the Judicial Council would be required to report to the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, this committee, and the Senate Committee on Judiciary on the topic of third-party agreements and any other recommendations they have for the use of third-party agreements in Kansas. And then finally, all these new provisions would expire on July 1st of 2029. If you look at page 6, we just add some definitions that are used. So we add the definition related to foreign person because we require designation whether that third-party agreement is a foreign third-party agreement. And then we actually define what a third-party agreement would be. And I can take any technical questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Representative Carmichael.
Thank you. Ms. Scott, could you help me with the definition of third-party agreement? I think at the very end of your presentation, you made a reference to the definition of third party. And let me try to put this in context for you. The reason that I inquire is in the original bill on page 2, line 18, agreements with an attorney representing a party were excluded from the definition of third-party agreements. And it appears that we have now stricken that exception. And as I read the language here, that means an attorney's contingency fee contract would be a third-party agreement. It would be subject to disclosure to the adverse party, And under subsection C of the balloon on page 2, it would also require a report to the Judicial Council of the contents of the lawyer's contingency fee agreement upon penalty of the agreement becoming unenforceable if not reported. Can you help me with this? Because I hope I'm reading this wrong.
Madam Chair, Representative Carmichael, if you look at the definition of third-party agreement, which starts there at paragraph 3, it says any agreement under which any person other than a party, an attorney representing the party, such attorney's firm, or a member of the family or household of a party. So
I'm not seeing where you're at. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be difficult. Where are you again?
So if you go to page 6, sorry, the line numbers, if you were to look at line number 30 and then go all the way across the balloon, that's where the agreement.
This.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I kind of glossed over this at the end, the definition section and the severability provision. So yeah, that's where the new definition of a third party.
Yeah, Madam Chair, could you afford me the courtesy of just a moment to breathe, because I didn't see the balloon at page 6. I apologize.
Okay. Yep, that's fine. Take a look.
Okay, that's where it appears generally stricken language over on page 2 was reinserted at page 6.
As a definition.
Yeah, and I don't want it's not identical, but
right, but conceptually. Okay, I'll keep looking at the details. Thank you, Madam Reviser and Madam Chair.
Representative Osmond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for the maker of the motion.
Madam Chair, should we move the or get a second?
Yeah, thank you for that. Go ahead, if you would move your amendment.
My amendment.
Seconded by Representative Estes. Thank you for that reminder. Sorry for the interruption. Representative Osmond.
Thank you. You had mentioned that interested parties brought this. Would you be able to tell us who those parties are?
Yeah, the Kansas Chamber and we had discussions with the Attorney General. Some of these were their ideas that they had expressed as well.
Okay, so the proponent and the neutral testimony, is that correct?
Correct.
So did you engage any of the opponents with regards to this balloon amendment?
Yes, I spoke with Mr. Frederico. I wouldn't want to say that he supports. I don't think it's fair to say he supports this, but we did have conversations with him.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. This balloon amendment is very lengthy in nature, to the extent that it pretty much doubles the length of the bill as it currently stands. And I find it difficult to make a determination on this, knowing that we don't have at this point, I mean, we're not allowed under this to have any more proponent testimony, neutral testimony, or opponent testimony. So it's difficult for us to determine, based upon this, how whether this actually solves the issues that are being presented, that were presented at the hearing. I would ask the chair that if we could table this for at least until tomorrow, so that we can make a determination as to so we have the time to properly read through this and vet this to make sure that we have all of the data available before making a decision on this.
Okay, so you're moving to table it until a date certain tomorrow. Is that what I understand?
That is correct.
Seconded by Representative Vaughn. That's non-debatable. So we'll go ahead and vote on that. Committee, I would say vote the way you feel on this. We will get to it today or we will get to it tomorrow. It's non-debatable, but Representative Goddard, you just have a general question?
My question is there a motion over there to table? And we have a motion on the floor to move the amendment, or move the amendment. So where do we go from here?
Yeah, so a motion to table kind of takes over. It's kind of a substitute motion. It's not called that, but it's a motion that sort of takes over and it's non-debatable.
So when we come back, that motion is still alive.
Yes, or we might have to remake the motion, but it will be the similar procedure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Representative Titus, procedural question?
Yes.
Okay.
If we're to table it, just to be clear though, when we come back tomorrow, we would need a majority vote to remove it off the table in order to continue work on it.
Is that, is it, if it's not, if it is date certain, then, and we approve the motion, then it automatically comes up.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to amend my motion to tomorrow if that's amenable to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was your motion, was a date certain for tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay. And the second agreed on that's what it was. That's what I heard too. Okay, committee. Here's the motion is to table it until tomorrow. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, so we will have this motion tabled until tomorrow. We will get to it tomorrow. I don't want y'all yet to the committee. I mean, audience jump up and go, but committee, I do want to just let you know what we're doing tomorrow. So we will come back tomorrow and talk about House Bill 2510. We will also have a hearing on House Bill 2381. It's a rehearing. It has to do with attorneys instead of guardian ad litems. We will also have a hearing on Senate Bill 473, and it has to do with notice to appear in the Kansas Code of Criminal Procedure. I would like to work two bills tomorrow, Senate Bill 394, age verification that we did today, and also House Bill 2782, the wrongful conviction that we heard earlier this week. That is a very full day. So please come ready to just get right to work. Do we have any questions? Anything else anybody wants to say? Representative Owens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the reminder of the committee, the rules number 6 says the chair reserves the right to limit questioning of conferees by committee members in the interest of time and in the interest of fairness to conferees and other committee members. I would also remind the committee that in number 7, it says no conferee shall be interrupted during the presentation of their testimony, except with the permission of the chair. And finally, I would add in number 18, the chair reserves the right to take such action as may be necessary to prevent disruptive behavior in the committee room or via WebEx during hearings or deliberations. That's what I wanted to bring up.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Committee, anything else? Anything for the good of the committee? All right, and we will continue to follow those rules. Thank you. All right, we're adjourned.